And welcome back. We are at now part 3 uh, of at least this particular batch of segments of 2 weeks ago for new comics, bitches! So I don't really know if it's new because they're not technically brand new. Not last Wednesday, but the Wednesday before. You get it, okay? If you've been following along, you know what I'm talking about, okay? Because I don't want to do it. I'd rather do it, in chronological order. Now, I already talked about what the book of the week was from that week, of course, and it was Secret Six, number 36. Then we've got, I think, the strongest contenders for that title that I hadn't already talked about, so we're going to talk about them now. And that was a book that I hadn't even heard about because it's a pretty independent comic, but I was really surprised by it. I heard a lot of things about it, and I read it, and I'm like, wow, this is cool. And that is Rachel Rising, number 1, which is a new comic by Terry Moore, who I'm, to be perfectly honest, I'm not terribly familiar with this stuff. He took over, he basically did the second volume of the comic Runaways after Brian Vaughan and Joss Whedon wrote Runaways. He was the guy that kind of took the reins and went from there. So I had the first couple issues of that. It just kind of lost its the charm that Vaughan had infused from it from the beginning. So that was part of what, I wasn't even that huge of a fan of the Whedon run. And you know me, I am like Mr. Whedon is God type of guy. So, but Rachel Rising is, story and art by Terry Moore. I've never read Echo, so I don't know anything about it. But it was just really, from a graphic storytelling standpoint, it was really powerful. It's just, it's a nice black and white comic, which, I do like. Basically what we have here, how it opens is that, it's a young woman who basically digs herself out of a shallow grave in the woods. And, she's kind of helped out by someone who stops their car, gets back to her place. She's, kind of not covered, but she's got a decent slick of mud and blood on her, and her eyes have, I think they have like petechial or 8-ball hemorrhaging, a little bit of that going on. And she has like this, severe bruise around her throat. She gets home, she showers off, and she's, but she has no idea what's happened. I think that's obviously, that's the draw to this comic, is that it's going to be a murder mystery about someone who solves about a young woman that solves her own murder. And, because it has an interesting quote by Plato, of all people, at the beginning of the comic, saying that death is not the worst that can happen. And this comic is meant to kind of prove that as an axiom, if you will. Terry Moore, so just as far as art wise, it's really a treat. I really like Terry Moore's art. I really liked his storytelling. I liked some of the albeit brief, but telling characterizations that were in the book. And I think this is going to be a really, really interesting book to see, where they go with it, and where this journey takes this young woman. As for what probably would have been my other book of the week on maybe any other week, is this Severed number 1 which is Scott Snyder's new book for Image. You know, it's an original tale, and it's, although it's Scott Snyder and Scott Tuft are doing the story, and Attila Futaki does the art on this, which is some really gorgeous art, I do have to say. And it starts off, those of you who kind of know Scott Snyder knows that he's kind of, he's kind of into Elvis. I think the 1835 that follows him, that follows his name on Twitter, is meant, it's like the 8th of January of 1935, which I think is Elvis's birthday or something like that. I don't know. He said something about it at some point in time, but this is, it opens up with, this old man, just kind of watching Elvis on TV, and he gets this, Jack Guerin is this old man's name. He has only one arm, but he's still a semi-normal person. I guess it's hard. It's, I don't mean that the way that it sounds. You know what I mean. But this message that his grandson brings in, that a man gave to him, seems to trigger some pretty bad memories from the past. And we go back to the past. We go back to 1916 in New York, a little town in New York, and we have a young Jack Guerin, a little boy, not little boy, but he's a young man, if you will, and he talks about becoming a hobo, but he's really, he's supposed to enter this this very this very prestigious school because of his violin playing, and it seems to be kind of jokingly that he talks about being a hobo, but he actually does run out that night and hops a freight train, and it just that's kind of the beginning of his adventure. But the nightmare, as he says, has already begun, but it's begun for somebody else. Basically, we have this mysterious Mr. Porter, and this young boy who gets an apprenticeship for General Electric, and leaves with this Mr. Porter, and just the whole mood of this comic all the way through, not mentioning what happens with this young apprentice and with this Mr. Porter, but also what happens with the character of Jack, hopping this train, and the relationship with his mother and his father, who is a wayward minstrel, and it's just we've got a really strong opening to a really strong and creepy fucking book. I'm dying to get new issues. I love this cover, by the way. This hand reaching through the paper, or this portrait. Something coming out to grab you, the reader. It really builds to a slow burn. It's the ending is shocking, but it's not as shocking because every page Snyder and this man Scott Tuft are using to build this tension very gradually, as as we follow these stories, and we know, obviously we know by the end that this young man, Jack Aaron, is going to probably run afoul of this Mr. Porter. For what reasons, we don't know yet. But it's, this kind of suspense, horror, mystery that, it's just, while I was reading it, I'm just kind of flipping the pages, and I'm just going, I had to read it. I read it like 4 times before I finally set it down. I was like, wow, this is really good stuff. Because there are 2 times that I think that you have to read a comic more than once. One time is when you just don't fucking get it. It's either it's so poorly scripted, or it's really high concept that you got to just go back and just reread it. And then there are the other books where it's like, okay, I need to kind of digest this all over again because this was such a good meal the first time. So that's what Severed was like. That's what Secret Six was like. Then you have comics also like Flashpoint, which are which kind of fall into the former of the 2 categories, it was so boring and so forgettable that I, just in order to talk about it here, it required that I, give it a second read. And I didn't even really give it a second read. I just kind of gave it a second once over, just so I could remember what the hell happened. Because I just remember reading it, I'm like, what the hell is going on? I mean, apparently all fucking hell is about to break loose, but I don't get that sense. I don't get a sense of any real urgency because, here's Reverse Flash, who is, who comes there at the end and he's saying, Barry, look what you did. And, I'm supposed to understand from that, or what I'm supposed to take away from that is that Barry did do something that, that somehow this Flashpoint event has to do specifically with him. So anyway, I just, I expect a lot more out of Jeff Johns. He's going to have a hard time getting money out of me in the future. And that I will touch on our next segment, which will probably be up early Tuesday, because I'll probably do it tomorrow night, which will concentrate on the books from just this past Wednesday. So bear with me, we will get to them all, because there was again, last week was another really big week, so we're going to get to a lot of stuff. So please comment, criticize, complain, whatever. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Please subscribe. If you want to see me on Facebook, I'm James Donnelly there too. I'm the only one in. I'm probably the only James Donnelly that you'll find with the poster of The Dark Knight Rises as his avatar, if you will. I'm in Arizona. I'm in Chandler, Arizona, and on Twitter I'm at Donnelly92274. So that's it for this for 2 weeks ago's comics, and we'll do next week's tomorrow because it's late and I want to go to sleep. So until then, this is the Shadow Gallery signing off. We'll see you tomorrow, I'm sure. And have a great one. See you next time.